If you opened your own locust farm and realized you had to feed them more and more blood to keep your business alive, what would you do? Farming is a thankless profession at the best of times, even more so when the crop you're farming is a pest so gnarly it can literally recalibrate its DNA to become a screeching carnivorous berserker, a werewolf of the insect world that can join with its pack to become a veritable tornado of blood and chaos. After her husband died, Virginia got hooked on locusts the way some people get hooked on selling Avon products, qualifying her self-worth by the amount of product she was moving. Now saddled with a horde of frenzying blood drinkers, she'll stop at nothing to keep her business going, even if it kills her in the process. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the locusts in The Swarm. The 10 plagues are no longer cautionary tales of a wrathful god. Now, they're cautionary tales of a bioorganic dystopian future, and market crops for farmers to sell. Virginie, her daughter Laura, and son Gaston live in the rural French countryside, where they run a locust farm. She tries to keep a population of the bugs alive in a geodesic greenhouse by feeding them the deflated long grass growing in her yard, and jellified water because they're so stupid they'll drown if she leaves a bowl of liquid water out for them. And she is crushing this locust farming game, literally turning them into flour to sell. As for the business side of commercial farming, not great. She has to borrow money from her friend Kareem to make it through the end of the month, and because she produces flour in such small quantities, her customers take advantage of her.
The minimum I need is 4 times that. If I can't sell it cheaper, then it's not worth it.
Laura's classmates make fun of her mom's job, sending her into a blood rage that ends in a parking lot fistfight. And Gaston entertains himself by letting his pet locusts eat the warts off his fingers. Is this some sort of European socialized healthcare I'm too American to understand? At their wits' end, Virginie offers Laura an alternative, saying they can sell everything and just leave if that's what Laura really wants. Oh, it definitely is. The problem is that Virginie can't get the little buggers to mate. With each cycle, she has fewer and fewer bugs to roast on her grill and turn into protein supplements, and she gets by on handouts that leave her thrumming with unchecked fury. But you know what they say, necessity is the mother of invention. In a fit of rage, Virginie tears her whole setup down, slips and bashes her own head on the floor. When she wakes, the locusts are drinking her blood and feeding on cuts on her legs and arms. Imagine waking to the incessant nibbling, them tearing into your body, the pulling pain on your skin as their mandibles macerate your flesh, eating you alive. Nope. A couple days later, Virginia discovers the bugs in a frenzy in response to her presence. Ever the scientist, Virginie reaches her cut arm into the locust tent to see what they'll do. They react like a vampire that's gone too long without a meal, tearing at her arm enough to leave pieces of their legs embedded in the wound. Look, I'm all for a little experimentation, but syringes are super cheap. Hours later, the critters are loud and thriving. Virginie suits up and discovers not only have the locusts grown and molted, but they've bred. The soil is littered with egg casings and baby grasshoppers called nymphs. You could practically see the dollar signs in her eyes. It's time to scale up. Kareem comes over to help her build a larger terrarium. She tells Gaston not to go into the tent anymore, lying that they've gotten bigger because she started feeding them parsley. So what does Gaston do? He puts a few of his mom's new monsters in with his pets, oblivious as they begin to feast on his old stock. Virginie feeds them again, this time slicing into her arm with a knife. Did I mention that syringes are cheap? Oh, and cow's blood too. Bovine blood is sold as blood meal for about 10 cents per pound in the United States. I don't know what it costs in France, but let's make some calls to the local cow farmers, get some quotes, instead of doing this. Within a few weeks, she's selling hundreds of kilos of the bloody crop to use as animal feed, and she expands to 4 greenhouses. She switches models for how she grows the insects. She goes from an open square room, where the locusts are able to space out from each other, to a netted system, where hundreds of insects are forced into tiny hanging cylinders to live out their lives. This may not sound like a big deal, but it is. The specific species of grasshoppers that metamorphosize into locusts do this when when their environments trigger a response in their DNA. When the conditions are favorable for breeding, nymphs explode in number. If they have enough room in their environment to never physically touch one another, then they'll grow into normal grasshoppers. However, if they can smell and see one another, their bodies will begin to mutate. If they're crowded enough to actually touch each other body to body, their chemical compositions will change. Their bodies will morph in shape, size, and color, and they'll become frenzying locusts. With her tiny bug bags, she's forcing them into contact with one another, all but guaranteeing they become locusts. Finally, she orders some blood from an anonymous company that doesn't ask too many questions and turns it into a tasty nutritional jello. From the locust reaction, this is the good. The demonic screeching of thousands of winged vermin drives Laura into madness. Night and day, she cranks the tunes on her headphones to drown out the sound, but even that doesn't cut it. Until finally, she takes a utility knife and hacks open one of the greenhouses. It's almost peaceful at first, until the storm of noise descends on the truck where Gaston is playing with his pet goat. The chaotic screeching engulfs the truck for only a few seconds, but when it's gone, so is the goat. Virginie finds it being consumed in a nearby field. Its belly rises and falls. It's still alive, too injured to move or fight anymore. Virginie wraps it in a tarp and drags it home. She lies to Gaston, saying she didn't find his pet and takes him to look for it. Let me guess, Virginia is going to find the goat several days later, after a new one is delivered by truck. Anyway, that's over now. I know you were all wondering when the swarm would descend upon their neighbors and begin rending the flesh from their bones like an all-you-can-eat barbecue. But this is a French film, so you gotta be patient. That swarm is over now, disappearing over the horizon. But hey, it's just one cloud of insects. What damage could it possibly do? Unfortunately, her growing infestation demands more and more blood to keep it going. She calls the shady company that supplied her last time and orders even more, but they refuse the order, saying that she'll have to show them a farming license. This is why she was trying to pass the locusts off as animal feed instead of a protein source for humans. Even though they're basically the gross Whole Foods version of a protein gummy bear, certain edible insects like mealworms, silkworms, and locusts can accumulate toxic chemicals like phosphorus that are fatal to humans. Same goes for blood. Drinking too much can turn these ugly bastards into a deadly iron tablet. Iron poisoning leads to vomiting, diarrhea, and potentially liver failure. Yada yada, you get it. But acquiring blood is a unique challenge for her and all the long-toothed nerds out there who awaken at night to feast on their human prey. The answer to her blood shortage is actually pretty easy, but it's not order off Amazon easy. Not yet, anyway. She should be trying to partner with mom and pop meat farms and slaughterhouses. These types of places want to sell as much of their animals as possible for profit, and most already sell the blood and leftover bits for use in either medical research or as additives in pet and livestock food. Without this shady company supplying her, she should be calling non-corporate farms and abattoirs for her supply, where blood is super cheap and paying cash under the table is probably great for everybody involved. Instead, she captures the neighbor's yappy dog in the dead of the night and tosses it right into one of the pens. Blood begins to dribble out of the bottom. Alright, I admire the ingenuity, but that is so wasteful. A whole dog for one of your bug bags? This terrier weighs all of 8 kilograms, and its blood makes up approximately 8% of its total body weight in kilograms. The University of Maryland's recommended standard amount of blood collection for a dog is about 1% of its total blood volume every 24 hours. If you're gonna use a dog, it better be a mastiff. Goats, on the other hand, are cheap to feed and have a maximum survival collection volume of about 10% of their blood every 2 weeks. Plus, she already owned a goat, meaning she knows how to raise them within her budget. It may sound stupid to get a different animal to feed your main one, but since we know we can afford it, and it beats the hell out of slicing up her own arm or dog napping, and it's legal to take blood from your own animals without anyone being suspicious, and they can live for years, supplying you with the simple miracle grow you need for your pests. So why not? Plus, it means you don't have to wash blood out of your baby pool every morning. The other thing you can do to make your life easier is to line the bottom of the greenhouses in plastic and rig drip feed tubes from the ceiling so you can pump the blood in for feeding and only enter wearing the plastic suit when you need to clean. But actually, while we're talking about it, goat milk is pretty profitable, and unless Black Phillip pays you a visit, they're way less hassle than man-eating bugs. A single goat can produce 3 gallons of milk a day. At about $12 per gallon, over a year, a single goat can net you about 10 grand. Get yourself 10 goats, and you'll be flush with cash in no time. At the very least, diversify your crops, so if the swarm goes Super Saiyan, you still have cash coming in. The next day, Virginia gets a surprise visit from her #1 customer, who doubles her customer base overnight, forcing her to go on the hunt for her next source of blood. She steals livestock from a neighbor and returns covered in viscera. Again, none of this is efficient or under the radar. This is only a good idea if you want your town to think you're a witch or a serial killer, and the amount of blood she gets still isn't enough. Laura finds her mom supplying the rest. At this point, she must just like it, because she's done jack all to outthink her situation. Maybe all that blood loss has compromised her brain. It's definitely compromised her body. She faints when Kareem comes to check on her, and she's in too deep now to tell anyone what's going on. Too proud to fail. I don't know. I can take a lot of failure before I let a bunch of bugs feast on me like a Vegas buffet. While she's away, the owner of the dog she stole comes looking for him. He enters one of the greenhouses and opens a bug bag. The swarm erupts into the larger tent, so thick they coat the entire ceiling, and in the corner, he finds the corpse of the goat she stole. Turns out, Virginia hasn't even been disposing of the leftover carcasses when the blood is gone. What is this, amateur hour? Kareem finds the old man's body. Virginia sees his ashen face and asks what's wrong, but he doesn't answer, or ask why there's a dead old guy in the tent. Turns out, Kareem is a ride-or-die kind of friend. He immediately runs back to his truck and returns with gasoline. He douses the tents and geodesic dome and sets them on fire. As the plastic burns, the swarm emerges. Kareem and Laura run to the house to hide, trying to shut the doors and windows before the swarm can breach. Unfortunately, this movie didn't have the budget to put on the real show for us. Virginia hears Laura screaming and runs inside to find Kareem already eaten alive. Maybe all that blood gave the locusts paralyzing powers, because I feel like a throw rug would have kept them off better than he did. It's like he rolled around in them. Laura managed to escape the house. She runs for the woods, but the insects follow, as if they're pursuing her specifically. Maybe they think of Virginia as one of their own now, or something, because they don't even glance at her twice. Laura gets to a lake and begins heaving an overturned boat into the water. She takes cover underneath, which is pretty quick thinking, all things considered. But locusts can swim and walk underwater, and they can remain submerged for up to 9 minutes before drowning. We're gonna need a scuba tank to beat that record. The swarm relentlessly attacks the boat with the ferocity of an action hero hunting the man who killed his family. Entomology nerds, let me know in the comments if bugs hold grudges, or if they have a way longer memory than I'm giving them credit for. Virginia sees the attack from shore. Luckily, she's got that one move she's been pulling the whole story to fall back on. She cuts her hand and wipes the blood across her face, drawing the swarm to her. Virginia walks into the water, and the swarm follows, crashing into the lake's surface until only a few remain. Mother and daughter embrace as the movie ends. Aw, look at all that sweet nonsense. Like I said, locusts can swim, and your entire house is crawling with them, so better get back and burn that down too. This tale of hubris ends with the town coming for her head on a spike when the rest of her pests descend on their crops, destroying their livelihood and their faces. But seriously, seriously. Raising these things and making a sustainable profit is down to acquiring a safe, ongoing blood supply and putting better locks on our pens. I was half expecting a Sweeney Todd transition here, so for all things considered, the swarm's only a problem in the hands of a moron with too little blood reaching her brain. Make a few phone calls, get some goat blood brewing, and stop people from slashing our plastic every 3 days, and we're in business. For those reasons, I think the swarm was beaten. Now, I'm gonna go eat a hamburger in peace.